The ethereal plane is a place filled with many wonders and terrors alike. And in today's episode of Monster of the Week, we are going to explore one such creature. But first things first, what exactly is the ethereal plane? Well, anyone who's played D&D for some amount of time or who has had a really rough time with ghosts will be able to tell you that it is in fact where many spectral anomalies tend to reside. It's easiest if you think of it as kind of a separate world that parallels and overlaps every part of the material plane. In other words, it's where ghosts live. But ghosts are not the only thing that live there. There's a whole manner of other creatures that can exist in this place, and the Ethereal Filcher is one such monster. And before we really get into this, let's just take a second to appreciate this creature's artwork. I really wish I could have been present for that moment where the artist revealed this as the concept art for this monster, and the person who was in charge of design was just like, yeah, that's it. That's the four-armed central mass blob, second vestigial headed, one-footed thing I wanted to see.
What have I done?
Aside from looking completely insane though, these creatures are actually pretty interesting. As their name would suggest, they are thieves that live in the ethereal plane and are coming to the material world to steal all of your party's valuables. At least as long as they can't stop them. So today, as always, we're going to talk about just exactly what this monster can do in a fight, and we're going to talk about some plot hooks and ways that you might want to use this monster in your D&D game. And of course, if you're interested, the stat block for this monster, which has been completely converted by yours truly from 3rd edition to 5th edition, can be found in the description below in the form of a Google document there. So without further ado, let's talk about what these things can do in... To say the Ethereal Filcher is a coward is putting it very lightly. They seek to avoid combat almost at any cost. They will only resort to violence if it is the absolute last option at their disposal, and this isn't because they're so noble or hate fighting other creatures. They just suck at fighting. The only attack that they have at their disposal, and the only offensive ability they have at their disposal for that matter, is a bite attack. It doesn't do poison, doesn't petrify you or anything, it just does a straight up d6 worth of damage. Granted, because their dexterity score is so high, it's 1d6 plus 4, but that's still kind of a joke when that's the only thing you can do offensively. I mean, the creature is only a challenge rating of 2, so it's not meant to be a big boss fight or anything, but it's not going to want to get in combat. It does, however, have a couple abilities that help make up for that. The first of which is called Ethereal Jaunt. This ability simply allows the creature to jump from the material plane to the ethereal plane, or vice versa, with the use of a bonus action. Which does mean that this creature is very hard to pin down. Because if you are on the material plane, it can come in, attack you if it wants to, and then zip back to the ethereal plane within the same turn. There are very few creatures that have mobility like that. So in this case, its best defense is its uncanny ability to get the fuck away from anybody who's trying to kill it. The other trait this creature has is something called Magic Sense, which essentially means that it's continuously under the effects of a detect magic spell. So the Ethereal Filcher is basically able to see magic. Any magic item within its line of sight is going to glow with a certain aura, which might change color depending on the school of magic that that item was created with. For example, an item made with necromancy might glow a sickly purple color to the Ethereal Filcher, whereas something made with holy magic, some type of divine object, might glow with a radiant white magic. The point being that this creature also has ethereal sight, meaning that it can see into the material plane from the ethereal plane, and it can also see if a group of people has any shiny magic items on them, and it's gonna try to rob them. So like a shady pickpocketer in a big city, the Ethereal Filcher is going to try to snap itself into the material plane from the ethereal plane, steal that item, and then hopefully the party either won't notice or it will be able to survive the next turn so that it can then jump back into the ethereal plane with whatever item it stole in its possession. In other words, the Ethereal Filcher is a petty thief and kind of an asshole. And I mean, if it does get caught, it's probably not going to be able to survive for very long, but it's not going to get caught. At least not if it can play its cards and use its abilities well. Also, something worth mentioning here is it has a move speed of 40 feet, which is pretty dang fast. you would think it would be a lot slower because, I don't know, when I first saw this creature, I just imagined it hopping along on its one stupid foot, which obviously doesn't make sense because it's going to use its elongated arms to kind of be climbing around and sneaking up around the sides of buildings and trying to reach over and yoink something out of someone's bag without them even noticing. If they do notice, though, they will be probably quite surprised to find out the person pickpocketing them isn't some little street urchin, but is, in fact, a gangly monster from realms beyond. That, however, does bring us to our next point, so let's talk about some... So while this creature doesn't have a ton to offer in terms of combat challenge, plot hooks and kind of how you employ this creature is going to be where the monster actually has a chance to shine. I mean, at its most base level, it's going to be used as an obstacle to try to mess with your party. It's going to be stealing a magical item from them, which could be a huge deal or not that big of a deal depending on what it steals, right? Because the Ethereal Filcher has this kind of ingrained desire to steal magical items and hoard them. Much the same way that a dragon covets gold and might amass a huge hoard, these guys seek to amass little collections of magical items that they might not even be able to use or understand. I mean, they have an intelligence of 7, so they're not completely stupid, but they're not stealing the party's magical wand with the hopes of being able to use it for some grand design. They're just taking the wand because they think it looks cool and it's shiny. And for whatever reason, they have this obsession with collecting magical items. So if it does steal something from your party, there are a few ways this can play out. That literally could be it. If it succeeds and just gets away and the party doesn't make their perception checks or doesn't notice until it's too late, they might have no idea that this thing even victimized them and stole stuff from their bags. At least not until they get into combat and they reach for that magic potion, which is suddenly not there anymore. That, as a player, is going to feel bad, so I don't suggest that you give them no chance to get their stuff back or at least realize they were even robbed. But I mean, sometimes the dice just don't go in their favor and that kind of stuff happens. That said, though, the Ethereal Filcher can make for an excellent kind of Monster of the Week style mystery investigation. Maybe in a small town or even a bigger city, there's been a rash of robberies in broad daylight. No one knows where these items are going that have gone missing. They haven't shown up anywhere. And all of the victims have had magical items stolen from them, from trinkets, maybe all the way up to some powerful scrolls or blessed weapons. So your party could end up being contracted by a local guild or gathering of people who just want these robberies to stop, and the party is responsible for investigating, finding out who or what is stealing these things, and then getting the items back. And if they're clever, maybe they're able to catch the creature in the act, and they can at least figure out what it is, and then maybe do some research to figure out where it's going with all these things, and then somehow find a way to the ethereal plane to track it down and try to get all the stuff back that it's stolen. And this could go a few different ways. The creature could simply be stealing these items for itself, just as the book describes. The party goes in, eventually corners it and kills it or forces it to flee, gets their stuff back, and that's the end of the adventure. Or, I mean, the creature is kind of intelligent, so maybe if it finds its hoard, it's willing to barter with the players. I mean, it can't speak, despite the fact that it appears to have 2 faces, one of which is vestigial, by the way. I always forget which one it is, but I'm pretty sure the one that hangs off of the front of its head isn't actually a real head. It's just a gross appendage that doesn't seem to serve any purpose. It'd be like if your appendix hung off of your forehead and had a face, I guess. But that's beside the point. Ethereal Filchers, while unable to actually speak, still are intelligent enough to communicate and understand a bartering kind of situation where they could possibly give up some of their treasure in exchange for their lives. Because if they do find themselves in that situation, realistically, it's only going to be because the party is able to keep them anchored with an item like dimensional shackles or something like that. Otherwise, they'll just bounce into the material plane and flee and obviously be upset about its hoard being taken, but ultimately also live to fight another day, or rather live to not fight another day. But if you wanted to take this one step further, maybe there's a few ethereal filchers that are all working for some powerful magic user who has kind of cut a deal with them, where if they go out and find all these magical items, the wizard or whoever it is will provide them with a continuous supply of magic and magical objects of their own, more than they could possibly steal. And why would a wizard do that? Well, the ethereal filchers just like magic objects. They might not be able to discern the difference between something that is like an artifact versus an uncommon magic item, right? So perhaps the wizard is doing this in hopes that he'll be able to take some very powerful magic items that they bring back and just give them random trinkets that he's able to make just on a daily basis with a small amount of magic. Or perhaps he's looking for something specific, some type of magic item that was either taken from him a long time ago or that is going to be used in some grander nefarious plan, and has a filcher or a few of them going out into the material plane, just expediting the process of gathering that back into his possession. But however you choose to use this creature, when you get to the point where the players find its hoard, which they are always going to end up looking for, be sure to throw in a ton of cool, fun little trinkets, like little things from that trinket list that's in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, or stuff like that. Just inconsequential magic items that are fun, because this is a perfect opportunity for you to just dump a few of them on your players, and people always like having fun, cool stuff. Plus, you'd be surprised how often some of those silly little trinkets can actually come into play. While a ball that bounces but stays in the ground for 10 seconds after you throw it before bouncing back up isn't the be-all, end-all of magical power, it's kind of neat, and who knows, there could be some fun ways where something like that could come up, right? In any case, that's all I've got for these creatures. They are simple little monsters, but they are very fun to use and can be a really neat idea for a one-shot or just kind of a little side distraction from the main quest in your campaign. And if you do like this monster and you want to use it, as I said, there is a 5th edition stat block in the description below. And of course, if you are one of my lovely patrons, it is up on the Patreon page in its full kind of 5e setup glory. And of course, if you are one of my lovely patrons, it's on the Patreon page in its full 5e style monster manual page glory. So once again, thank you very much. And thank you to every single one of you out there watching this for showing up today and checking out this neat little 4-armed, 2-headed, 1-footed monster. It's just a nightmare to look at. I hate his fingers so much.